supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
AM 1420, WBSM presents Spooky South Coast with your hosts Tim Weisberg and Matt Costa.
Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and science advisor Matt Moniz, overcoming some technical issues here in the Spooky Studio in order to bring you the program where we talk about this paranormal each and every Saturday night. And we're having some issues with Spooky TV. It is up and running as far as we can tell, but we don't have any chat room access here in the studio, so Matt Costa can see it on his phone, but it's kind of hard to read. So anybody that's in the chat room tonight and has some questions, you're going to have to call into the show because we don't have a way to read them on the air. But that's not going to stop us from having a great program tonight with our guest, Reverend Clarissa Vasquez. She's joining us once again. She's from the Colorado Coalition of the Paranormal, and that's coloparanormal.com. You can check her out linked up on SpookySouthCoast.com as well. But we're going to bring her right on board and get right to the discussion because we've only got about 20 minutes left in this hour. So good evening, Clarissa. How you doing? Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're always happy to have you here. And last time that we had you on the program, we were discussing hitchhiker legends and myths, and I was just wondering if you caught the red-headed hitchhiker.
You know, when I was out there in New England last summer, we did look for the red-headed hitchhiker, and the closest we came was a photograph of me hitchhiking underneath the street sign that we emailed to Chris Balzano.
Yeah, that counts. You're red-headed and you were hitchhiking. It counts.
That's right. That's right.
But
so that was the closest we came to finding that particular hitchhiker.
I don't think that you would treat motorists the same way that the phantom red-headed hitchhiker does.
You know, I don't think so. I
be...
don't think I'm in that much demand yet.
Oh, I was going to say, that'd just be rude. Somebody gives you a ride and you cause all those kind of problems.
I know.
But, I mean, in the year that's passed since you were here, or the time that's passed since you were here, I mean, you must have gotten more reports and found more reports of similar type entities on the different various roadways across America.
We did. And the more I've discussed the project with various organizations, the more interest the project itself has gained. And we did the initial trial run last summer and worked out a few bugs, and we're getting ready to launch it again next weekend.
That's what I was going to say. That's really what I think is key to this whole hitchhiker thing, is to get as many different stories from different areas of the country, different roadways, and maybe even different parts of the world, and kind of bring them all together. And as we discussed last time, picking apart the similarities, the differences, and seeing if maybe we're not just sharing one common, I don't want to say boogeyman, but one common type of entity that, is seen worldwide.
Exactly. And in running that particular project, trying to find the similarities and contributing toward the theories on time, temperature, lunar phase, and things of that nature.
Is there a chance, though, that even with all this research and all this documentation, that it's going to be so elusive that you can never really get to the bottom of it? It might just be simple mythology and folklore.
Absolutely. That's the case with any type of research that you do. You can either find conclusive evidence or have your findings be inconclusive. And the neat thing about this project is it can always be tweaked and restructured to further your knowledge and better your research.
Well, and I assume, being a student of history that you are, I assume that a lot of that plays into this too, where it's kind of just the common story of a people. And whether it be a hitchhiker, whether it be something under the bed, something in the closet, it just seems like there has to be this something for us to fear. It's almost like the fear that drives us, no pun intended, when we're going down this road, this dark and quiet road. There's a natural fear, so we need to kind of have an explanation for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, humans are innately, fear is bred into us. It's part of being an animal, so to speak. And every animal has to fear something. And because humans have evolved so drastically, and with developments in technology and science and evolution, if you will, humans have to fear something, and because oftentimes, you're in the dark and you can't see things, that's when that innate ability kicks in, and you don't know what's going on because you can't see what's around you when you're in the dark.
And we talked about this before, but I think it would be really cool to have one night where we do set up various teams along a roadway and see if maybe we can pinpoint one of these entities and see if we're really seeing the same creature travel along a road, or if it's really just these could very well be some sort of a tulpa, some sort of a thought form that's been created by so many people traveling down those roads and sharing those stories that henceforth it exists.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to determine something, is to replicate. And so if you can get, say, 3 different teams on the same stretch of road, that witness the same phenomena and and corroborate each other's stories, and validate what was witnessed and what was experienced, then that's pretty good proof in itself. Of course, technical proof in the form of audio or video is even better. But if you can get 3 separate witnesses that all observe the same thing, then that would certainly provide a point for further research.
And I'm sure
that location.
I was going to say, I'm sure that we have a number of people that are listening who may not be familiar with the story, at least of our hitchhiker. We have the red-headed hitchhiker of Route 44 who supposedly appears on the side of the road looking for a ride, and he harasses those that pick him up. What are some of the similarities that you see and some of the differences in these hitchhiker characters in different locations? I mean, is the red hair a similar theme? Is the style of dress a similar theme, or is behavior?
Most of the time it's behavior. The hitchhiker itself, it varies. It's either male or female. More often than not, it's female. But the type of dress varies. I think every state in the country has some sort of hitchhiker folklore about a woman in a prom dress or a wedding, mm-hmm. who is looking to go home or looking to get to her wedding, and so we encounter that quite a bit. People saying, "Yeah, I saw her," or "I've heard this story, at this location," and so different teams go out frequently all over and find this hitchhiker. And unfortunately, for as popular as hitchhikers are, the actual sightings are pretty elusive. They're not as frequent as you might think.
I don't know how far back you've gone in the history of this hitchhiker phenomena, but prior to motor vehicles and the roadways that we have now, I mean, what would be the precursor to these stories? Were they just people on the side of the road looking for a horse and buggy ride, or were there other similar, road demons that would harass travelers?
The precursor would probably be the woman in white, the one that people see plunging to their deaths off of a bridge or off of a cliff near a road where people can see her traveling, experiencing some sort of enormous grief. And those are also very popular, but not as popular as the hitchhiker stories that are coming about now with vehicles.
Well, I think part of the appeal of the hitchhiker phenomena is the fact that it is interactive. The fact that he is getting in the vehicle with you and he is, interacting one-on-one with you, whereas some of these other stories, they might just be spirits along the side of the road.
Right. And of course, because humans have to fear something, and a lot of people, really enjoy that adrenaline rush. That's what makes searching for the hitchhiker so popular.
Well, again, we always say this, but if the hitchhiker is out there and he wants to call in, 1-877-996-1420, 508-996-0500. Those are the numbers to call in. We don't have chat room access tonight, so if you have a question, you have to call in with it. That's the way to do it. You can also email us, spookykcrew@spookysouthcoast.com. And we've got a whole slate of things we're going to talk about over the course of our discussion with Clarissa up until midnight. And one of the things that I want to get into in the next hour is a project that you're working on now that has to do with ghosts in the Bible. because that to me is a very fascinating story when you're trying to explain to people that ghosts and religion can go hand in hand. But you actually have a new book out right now called Ghosts of the Heart, and tell us a little bit about that work.
Ghosts of the Heart, a paranormal investigator's journey, is a fiction piece, very loosely based on actual investigations that I've conducted. Names and locations and some of the events have been changed, but it's a 3-part fiction piece that each of those investigations has stuck with me and has been so monumental to me. It really left its mark on me to the point where I chose to write about it and build stories around it.
Do you find it hard, though, to incorporate the nonfiction investigation into the fictional aspect? I mean, is it a hard line to decide whether or not you're going to use as much artistic license as you may need to with a case?
For me, it's not. I was able to build on those events and create a fiction piece around them really well, actually. And only the people that know me really, really well are able to differentiate between what's fact and what's fiction.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have a call on the line. Oh, dropped off. Sorry, I can't see the phones over my computer monitor. But if you do want to call in, 1-877-996-1420, 508-996-0500 are the numbers. With that book, Ghosts of the Heart, I mean, is there an idea behind it where you're maybe a little bit concerned that people will hear that it's fiction and not believe some of the stuff that really did happen to you on these investigations? Or does that just not even matter to you?
I really don't think that applies. To people that have read it so far and have contacted me about it have said, wow, this is great. And in the book itself, you know, I maintain that level of scientific aptitude that I tend to apply to my research. And so it's not as far-fetched as one might think, as far as this is a ghost story or something to that effect. But it definitely keeps the reader intrigued and wanting to learn more based on the feedback that I've received so far. It's only been out since May.
Well, and people, of course, they can get that through your website. Is that the best way to get it?
That's the best way to get a signed copy.
There you go. And that's coloparanormal.com, COLO paranormal.com?
Yes, and there is a link right there on the homepage where you can purchase that book and also see the 3 books that are also going to be available before the end of the year.
Wow, yeah, that's very busy. Well, one of the things that I was noticing as I was watching some horror movies this week, you know, I had a few days off and I was watching some horror movies, and I was watching just tonight. I was flicking around the channels and I happened to cross Poltergeist, and I realized a lot of these movies are the ones that kind of blend that line perfectly, the idea of what could be true and what is fictionalized, where there's a lot of key elements to it that are legitimate paranormal investigation and legitimate paranormal documentation. And then the fun stuff comes when, you know, that starts to heat up. When you were writing Ghosts of the Heart, was there a desire on your part to, at any point, enhance the actual activity that happened? Or did you try to keep it at least pretty close to what you actually experienced in the investigation?
Some of it is enhanced pretty well, but other parts of it are pretty what actually happened. And you know, again, because these are based on actual events, I've got to walk a really fine line in maintaining my client's confidentiality and keeping the locations pretty low key, so that there isn't, you know, this mass rush to somebody's house going, you know, I read about this place in this lady's book, and you know, and I want to check it out. And so, you know, there's a fine line that I have to walk in that respect. But in other areas, you know, I utilize my ability to embellish events and activity.
Plus, what might seem mundane to us as investigators, you know, that could mean the whole world to somebody who isn't familiar with it. I was sharing some stories today with some kids about some of the investigations that I've had, and some of the ho hum stuff that's gone on, and they were fascinated just by the mundane things. So you never know. All right,
you never know, and it certainly makes for a really good stormy night read. For anybody that's into reading those books during thunderstorms. I know one of my investigators loves to do that, and that's exactly what he did when he read the book for the first time. He read it during a thunderstorm, and I got a message on Facebook going, "Wow!"
All right, well, we do have a call on the line here, so let's go to the phones. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast with Clarissa Vasquez. How you doing?
Hi, it's Keith Johnson calling.
Hey, Keith. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
We're doing well. How about yourself?
I wanted to say hi to Clarissa, and I'm very glad to see her on your show. And welcome to Spooky South Coast.
Thanks, Keith. I'm honored that you called in.
Yeah. Well, I saw you on. I had to call in, and I just wanted to say hi, and very glad to see you on the show. And I know you deal with demonology as well, which can be a very interesting subject.
Yes, it can.
Well, and that's something I definitely want to discuss with you a little bit in the second hour as well, Clarissa. The idea that there is a rise in demonologists. We've talked about this with Keith in the past, and there does seem to be a lot of people who are getting in over their heads when it comes to demons.
Yes, and I hope you do discuss that, because there's a lot of people, like young people, that are getting into it and unprepared, and they think it's just glamorous, and they're not. So I hope you do discuss that a little later, and because that's a very relevant topic.
Well, you know how it is. You want to make sure you have the most exciting cases for TV. That's how these kids are thinking.
That's right. And then they go out and do it, and suddenly there's a backlash. But
we'll definitely get into all that and more. And Keith, I noticed that you were here recently for the Southcoast Toy and Comic Show.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry, I missed you at the latest one, and I noticed you've been out and about quite a bit lately.
Yeah, I'm getting out and about because now is the slow season for tourism, which is how I make my living recently. Besides books and everything. So now's the slow season, so I'm taking advantage of it and getting back out there.
Well, you got to talk to content director Chris Balzano. We got to get you back in here for another show.
Fantastic. I would love to do that.
All right. Thank you for calling in, and take care.
Okay. God bless, guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That is funny, Clarissa. We talk with Keith all the time about how, there's people who aren't grounded enough to become demonologists who try to do that. And, of course, I didn't introduce you as such, but you are a reverend. So you definitely have a firm, grasp of your spiritual side to be able to go up against these things.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I tell everybody, as Keith mentioned, I get people contacting me regularly saying, "Oh, I want to learn about this. Will you teach me?" And I'm really interested in the demonology side. And my first reply is always, if I knew then what I know now, I would not have embraced the demonology side the way that I did back then.
Well, should it be an interest in demonology, or should it be a calling?
It should be a calling.
I mean, I guess being somebody who wants to avoid the demonic at all costs, if I can, I don't see what the lure would be to somebody who doesn't feel that calling. I don't know why they would want to go up against this head-to-head if it's truly that evil and it's truly not just, encompassing your soul to go up against it and do battle. I just couldn't understand why somebody would want to rush into something like that.
Well, just like you mentioned while Keith was on the line, TV shows have really softened the demonology aspect. They present what could possibly be a demonology case and send in a minister or a priest or even a lay person in some cases to go head to head with this potentially demonic entity, and at the end of the show there's a happy ending.
Not only that, but I noticed the demons also get to come back like the next season for a return appearance.
Exactly.
It's almost like demons have become like that special girl that Fonzie just couldn't get over.
Exactly. And when you're dealing with a potential demonic entity, the last thing you want to do is send somebody in that is uneducated, unprepared, and does not have a strong spiritual background.
Well, that eliminates me on all three counts. Sorry. We're coming up here against the news. When we come back on the other side, I want to talk more about demonology with you, and I also want to talk more about ghosts in the Bible. So we're going to get a little religious on you here as we head into Sunday. So stay tuned for more. We have another hour coming up with Clarissa Vasquez here on Spooky South Coast.
First with local news, talk, and sports. This is WBSM New Bedford, Citadel Broadcasting, AM 1420, WBSM.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. A Saturday night squabble ahead of tomorrow's negotiations on the debt limit, just days after House Speaker John Boehner agreed with President Obama to think big and get a long-range agreement that covers Social Security, Medicare, taxes, and deficits.
We've got a chance to do something big. We have that chance to do it now.
Hours ago, Boehner issued a statement saying a large deal may be dead because the president insists on ending tax loopholes and breaks for oil companies and corporate jet owners, which Republicans oppose. ABC News White House correspondent Ann Compton.
In a retaliatory statement, White House Communications Director Dan Pfeiffer made the case for a broad deal, including tax loopholes. He warned that to, quote, back off now would only confirm American cynicism about politics in Washington.
Data from files seized in the bin Laden raid could enable the U.S. to target many key al-Qaeda leaders and destroy the terrorist network's ability to attack America. That from Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. ABC's David Curley.
General David Petraeus, who will be moving into Panetta's former job as director of the CIA, agreed with the assessment that al-Qaeda is on the run and reinforced the call to keep pressure on all al-Qaeda leaders.
You have to whack all the moles simultaneously. This is a network, and you must pressure the terrorist network wherever it is.
On the war in Afghanistan, General Petraeus made a bit of news today. He said for the first time in 5 years, last year, the number of insurgent attacks in Afghanistan actually went down.
A strong earthquake rocked Japan Sunday morning, triggering tsunami warnings along the country's northeastern coast. The magnitude 7.1 quake hit just before 10 a.m., rattling nerves in the same area devastated by a massive earthquake and tsunami 4 months ago. Workers at the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant evacuated to higher ground as a precaution, but the plant operator says no problems have been reported so far. Akiko Fujita, ABC News, Tokyo.
You're listening to ABC News.
At Advance Auto Parts, we know the economy has been a bumpy road lately, but we'll help smooth things out with amazing deals on what you need to keep your car running great. Right now, our new 5+ quarts jug of Valvoline conventional motor oil and filter are just $18.99. Plus, sign up for Valvoline's engine guarantee and get an additional $5 off through mail-in rebate. And with Advance's low price guarantee, we'll match our competitors' prices. Great prices at Advance Auto Parts. One more way, service is our best part. See store for details.
Could switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Can you find anything on the internet? Well, I'm sure you can, but don't take my word for it. Just ask this talking dog who can only say I love you. Roll the clip. One more time, talking dog.
For a free rate quote, visit geico.com to see how much you could save. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Public and private memorial services for former First Lady Betty Ford are planned for this coming week in both California's Coachella Valley, location of the Betty Ford Center, and Michigan, as her casket travels by motorcade and military transport to be laid to rest alongside her husband in Grand Rapids. ABC's Cokie Roberts was a personal friend and credits Mrs. Ford with much good.
By talking about breast cancer and then by founding the Betty Ford Center, she really has saved thousands of lives. Women really started going and getting breast checkups because Betty Ford said publicly that she had breast cancer.
Betty Ford died yesterday of natural causes at 93 in Palm Springs, California. A video examination of Space Shuttle Atlantis' heat shield shows no damage, says NASA. The shuttle's to dock at the International Space Station tomorrow. NASA says a decision will be made Monday whether to extend the mission an extra day. A fire kills part of a Dr. Dolittle type menagerie.
Milwaukee Fire Department officials say around 300 rats and a cat were killed in the blaze in a duplex on the city's south side. Officials say 6 people escaped unharmed. Firefighters rescued 25 snakes, including at least 1 boa constrictor that were being housed in the basement of the duplex. Also rescued were a turtle, 7 other cats, and other animals. Investigators say the hundreds of rats that were killed were being raised as food for the snakes.